Today it's the second story. I have picked Ajamila's story. It's Canto 6, Chapter 1 and 2. It's a story of a fall from grace, that is, loss of memory of who oneself is, and a very interesting debate, cosmic debate. Some of these sacred stories are quite symbolic. Ajamila's story is pretty clinical, psychological, and painfully human. Let's listen to the story. So, Ajamila, long before he became a sinner on the brink of death, was a young, well trained Brahmin, disciplined, quite sincere in his practices, and he was raised in the rhythms of Dharma. His downfall does not begin with somebody doing something bad to him, no villainy. It begins with a moment of unguarded attention. Nothing. One day, he encounters a woman embracing a drunkard in an intimate scene charged with desire. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam describes this moment quite vividly. Something in him slips. A Brahmin boy, well brought up, it's all gone in one moment when he sees this intimate scene. A single sensory impression, that's all it takes. It pulls him off center. That desire hijacks his attention, and once attention is captured, his memory of who he is begins to completely erode. Particular type of thing is actually mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as well. Chapter 2. Sankalpat jayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha sammohat smriti vibramaha. Smriti brahmasat buddhinaso buddhinasat pranasyati. From thought arises desire. From desire comes anger. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, the loss of memory of who oneself is. When memory is lost, wisdom is destroyed and all is gone. Exactly Ajamila, his story in somewhat slow motion. He abandons his duties, deceives others, and attaches himself to that same woman. His life becomes a long drift, years shaped not by deliberate choice, but by habits formed in one unprotected moment. You might all remember Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha. That touches a similar nerve, how sensual allure can quietly pull a seeker away from himself. Though the narratives differ, the inner mechanics are pretty similar. Once attention is captured, one's memory is blurred, and his or her identity is completely destroyed. Okay, in this collapse of self for Ajamila, one thing remains unbroken. He has many children, but he was very fond of his youngest one. And the youngest one named Nārāyaṇa. So he spends his life in this sin, what our society calls sin, with that woman, forgetting everything else. Old age comes and he is weak and he is in deathbed. As he lies on the deathbed, the Yamadūtas come to him. They, who they are, the agents of death. They are approaching him. He sees that scene. He's terrified. So he shouts instinctively, Nārāyaṇa. He's calling his child in fear. But the cosmos hears a name that carries ancient power, right? In Nārāyaṇa and in our culture, symbolizes a great power. Scientifically speaking, near-death research also shows that deeply encoded memories, especially names tied to emotion, can spontaneously surface, briefly restoring clarity or triggering survival impulses. So, a dying man, stripped to his core, reaches for the one memory that anchors him. That's what happens to Ajamila here. What happens next is one of the most remarkable jurisprudential debates in sacred literature. So the Vishnudūtas come and guard the, the dying man from the Yamadūtas. They get into an argument. So Yamadūtas say, wait a minute, he has lived a life of sin. By scripture and justice, he belongs with us. But the Vishnudūtas answer with a principle that shapes the entire moral frame of the story. They say, the utterance of the divine name destroys past sin, all past sin. The utterance of the divine name destroys all past sin. It is not a loophole, but because it reveals the underlying truth of the heart, we must protect them. You have to stop. So the point by point thing is, he uttered the name Nārāyaṇa at the moment of death. The name and the one it signifies are inseparable. Even an accidental utterance can reawaken latent devotion. By the laws of Dharma, this invocation supersedes previous misdeeds. That's their argument. Yamadūtas have no response to it. They don't know what to do. So they go to Yama to find some answers. In the meanwhile, Ajamila is back to life. And he is not just back to life, he recovers his identity. So his memories come back, who he is supposed to be. So Ajamila does not die that day. Shocked, he awakes. Physically and spiritually, he withdraws to Haridwar. And he practices authentic devotion, repairs his inner life, and ultimately passes away in clear, intentional remembrance. His liberation is not cheap grace, it is memory restored. So the moral of today's story, what Ajamila teaches us is that, even just a small moment of desire can derail our life. We can lose sight of who we are. But all is not lost. We can pull ourselves from our bootstraps. And that last ditch effort comes from the thought of divinity.